Yes. That's a lunker. That's a lunker. That's what this is all about. Right there. This is what it's all about. Another decent one. Gonna be a good day. That's a good one. Please stay on. Please stay on. Solid fish. Not huge, but I'll take it. Nice. Heavy. Big old bug. Big old bug. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. First off, happy holidays to everyone. I hope you guys have a great holiday season.
Ooh, that's a nice one.
And if you're watching this, one of two things. You like to see big fish get caught, or you're wondering how to get on some of these fish during the colder months. I have mixed feelings about this time of year. I used to dread it because seemingly the fish would disappear. So I would hang it up oftentimes, and basically right now, first week of December, I'd go out multiple times to get 1 3 or 4 pounder, and it was just a struggle. This year, I've had a lot of success, and it's like night and day. Part of it, I believe, is because I learned a lot last February. I didn't have my boat last winter. This time last year, I had to turn it in to get some warranty work done. And then right when I got it back, I basically got in a car accident, and someone hit my trailer, and it wasn't terrible, but the repairs took forever. So I was out a total of 6 weeks last winter.
Big.
So I didn't do much fishing, and I was really wanting to dedicate my winter to figuring out these fish because I knew that guys would get out there and catch them, and frankly I wanted to be that guy. So I put the pedal to the metal as soon as I got my boat back in February. I think it was like mid-February, possibly early part of February, and it absolutely blew my mind. I was getting on big fish pretty consistently through February of last year. I think I caught five fish over 5 pounds just in February.
All about.
And that really opened my eyes to the potential. And I couldn't have been more curious about how December and January fishes if February fished that well. Even if it doesn't fish quite as well, that's, still big fish getting in the boat. And I would love nothing more than being able to get on some fish somewhat consistently through these colder months. Mainly because this is the time of year when I have a lot more time on my hands. Work slows down, and I'm able to, get off work early, regularly, and I always have to work mornings, but that frees up my afternoons. I know it gets dark pretty early, but I could get 3 hours on the water, a couple days a week. So this is really exciting for me to know that there's potential fish to be caught as these colder months arrive. So this is sort of a mixed topic video, sort of a closing video for the year. I wanted to reflect a little bit on this year and how it went for me. Some of you guys know that last year was absolutely bonkers. I absolutely crushed it on the tournament circuit that I did, and it was
beautiful.
It was just nonstop. I couldn't even believe it was happening. I felt like I was getting lucky, and I didn't know if I could do it again this year. Well, this year, not quite as good as last year. I would argue I was more consistent this year, but I had less first place wins. So, I have mixed feelings on that, but the bar was very high from last year, so it was no surprise to me that I didn't go out and win 4 or 5 tournaments again this year. I did learn a lot about being consistent. The lakes I bombed at, I came back and did really well. Now, I didn't win them, but I did really well, so definitely learning. And consistency is everything when you're chasing that Angler of the Year. This year I got second place in the club that I'm in, and the guy who got first was basically unstoppable. So he had a year like I did last year, and it's kind of hard to beat. So it is what it is. I couldn't have lost to a better fisherman, so hats off to him.
All right.
And I'd like to say I'm aiming to do that again next year, but I have sort of an announcement to make. I'm having another baby. It is due, she is due in May. So that could absolutely complicate my spring. And we're just not sure how much fishing is going to happen. I like to think I'll still get out on the water. I was able to when I had my first kid, but this is a little different. When my wife's with the infant, someone's got to watch the toddler, and that someone is me. So I don't think I'll be quite as lucky as I was with the first kid. So I can only hope, but we'll see how that goes. So this year, I know I didn't put out as many videos as I was really hoping to do. This is the busiest year at work I've ever had. So I was pretty slammed. And then when I did get spare time, I wanted to get on the water so bad. I'm an addict. I'm sure some of you guys are the same way. But if I got a half day free during the week, You think I wanted to sit behind my computer and edit a video, or get out on my damn boat and catch some big fish? No brainer. So I know I didn't get as much time put into the videos as I hoped, but you know, I think I'll do a little better next year. I have a little plan for that. So we'll just see how it goes. I'll touch on that later in this video.
Take it.
So as you can see, I mean, these catches this week or this month so far have been just crazy. I can't believe how many big fish I got on.
See ya.
And I look forward to sharing what I'm doing with y'all. I will do another winter video really trying to break down this stuff. My last winter video was good, but these fish are still transitioning, so things are still changing. And I touched a lot on the fall-winter transition, but I know I need to explain their behavior when it's midwinter. And so assuming I get that dialed, I'll for sure follow up and do one more video. Another thing, when I do these videos, sometimes I go back and watch them, sometimes I don't. This last video, actually maybe a couple videos, I don't know if it's just me, but I come across like maybe I'm bragging or trying to be a know-it-all. I know more than anyone how much I don't know. Okay, I go up against the best fishermen in the state in some of these tournaments. I know what greatness looks like. I know I'm not there, but you know what? I'm sharing everything that I learn as well as I can in the time that I have. So I'm doing my best, and I know I'm helping some of you guys because I get messages and good feedback. So I will continue to do so, and I will get better at making these videos. It's hard to explain some of this stuff. It's one thing to explain the baits that are working. That's easy. I could show you some lures and tell you to get out there and catch them. There's just so much more to it. My success is less about my bait choice and more about getting on these quality fish. And I plan to share as much as I can about that without, going down the rabbit hole too bad, because I know some of that's more advanced tips, and a lot of you guys are just trying to figure out, the basics of winter fishing, like basically where I was a year or two ago. And you got to start with bait choices and just a rough understanding of how these fish set up and behave. So I will do my best, and just know that my intention is not to not to brag or come off that way. I do want to make sure everyone knows that I do in fact catch fish, and I'm not just pretending to be a good fisherman. But I think I got that point across. Tournament wins, tons of big fish in my footage. So I think I got the point across. Now I should just focus on sharing as much information as I can about how I go about catching these fish. And that, sort of a side note, I can't help but to believe some of these YouTubers, when I watch these videos, I swear some of the most popular YouTubers aren't even good fishermen. And when they're breaking these down and telling you how to do this or do that,
Not giant, but very strong.
or how to win tournaments, and then you go back and look at how many tournaments they've won, it's like one tournament over the last 5 years. These guys are really good at making videos, but maybe not quite as good
My goodness.
as they're leading you to believe about actually fishing and catching big fish. So definitely keep that in mind. That's why I think it's important to watch plenty of footage of them actually catching big fish and not just talking about it. So there is another purpose to posting all these bigger catches, and honestly, when I first started this channel, it was just sharing the idea was just to share some of the extraordinary catches that I'm fortunate to have. And
Not a giant.
I did not intend on doing commentary. I knew I wasn't the most knowledgeable fisherman. I just liked recording them, and I thought it was kind of fun making the videos. So that's sort of my intention in the beginning, and I've just been getting messages and feedback and a few comments about, hey, you should really focus on instructional,
Especially this time of year.
videos and sharing how to do what you're doing. So you hear enough of those messages and you gain enough confidence that, oh shoot, maybe I do know a lot about this, and maybe I should figure out how to share what I know.
Very nice.
So that's just, I just want to touch on that. I kind of dragged that out a little longer than I wanted to, but I definitely think there's something to that, though. I think there's guys that are very good at making videos, and then there's guys that are very good fishermen, and I don't think there's that many guys that do both. That's just my theory. All right, another thing I thought worth touching on is, it's no secret this forward-facing sonar business is taking over fishing, especially, I will admit, especially during these cold months. That doesn't mean you guys can't learn from what other guys are learning from their forward-facing units, because it's all good stuff. I've learned so much since I got mine. I got mine 2 years ago, and it changed the way I think about fishing in general. Now, nothing really has changed on how I go about catching fish in, early spring, late spring, and then even summer. I'm doing a lot of the same things. And I was catching a lot of fish before I had it, just so you know. There's a lot of good fishermen that are even better now with forward-facing sonar. So you definitely shouldn't judge a fisherman just because he's catching using forward-facing sonar. I know it's a touchy subject. Guys don't like to admit how much they use it. But it is fun, and it is addictive, and it adds a whole different dimension to fishing.
Another beauty.
Take it or leave it. That's just, it is what it is. My point is, without going down that rabbit hole, is there's no question that some of these techniques these guys use while using forward-facing sonar is not the best technique for those who don't use it. And absolutely keep that in mind. It goes both ways. And I think that's a very important distinction. And I think guys should probably focus more on sharing and making clear which baits work for what scenario. So what I found with forward-facing sonar, I think my biggest lesson is first of all, how many fish you can't catch. It's not as easy as maybe some of you think. You can find fish and not be able to get them to bite, and that's a very common occurrence. It is very common. And what I've learned, the number one thing I've learned from that is, let's just say you figure out that 1 out of every 15 fish you encounter will bite. That's pretty terrible if you really think about it. So for a guy to have a good day when the bite's finicky like that, they got to get on a number of fish just based on those numbers. It's a tricky deal. You got to get on, 50, 60, 70 fish to really have a decent day when the bite's terrible. Now, if you think about that, if you don't have forward-facing sonar and you think about that, think about how important it is to cover water.
December, baby.
If you want to get your lure around that 1 in 10 or 1 in 15 fish, you got to cover ground, because first of all, you don't know if you're even on the fish, and you don't know, how many of the fish are willing to bite. So there's no question, you just have to cover water. That's why I say how important it is to have moving baits as a part of your arsenal. So keep that in mind.
Bam.
The way someone may fish
Go
with
in.
forward-facing sonar may
Back-to-back
not be what
casts.
you should be doing. Now, there's a flip side to
Man, I
that.
thought I was on the wrong bait.
Forward-facing sonar has taught
nice.
guys what baits work
3-pounder.
the best, period. You know, without all the strings attached. It obviously has exposed what these fish are interested in. So some things that guys with forward-facing sonar are showing online or on YouTube or what have you
That's a bigger fish.
is absolutely dynamite stuff. But just needs to be considered. And I'll do my best to convey which baits I recommend for what scenario. So, having that said, moving baits. Moving baits is key. And I emphasize on that even with forward-facing sonar this year. Or in general. Because I find that those fish that are willing to bite, let's say that 1 in 10 fish, I think it's the fish. That fish is just more likely to bite than the rest of the fish, period. Full stop. I think those same fish that bite one thing I'm using would bite another thing I'm using.
I think that's a 5.
If I'm running a swim bait over their head and that fish is just way more aggressive than the rest, comes up and smashes it.
Beautiful.
I bet if I dragged a drop shot right into that area, that fish would be the one to bite it. I mean, it's just a mentality thing. That's why some days are better than
I
others.
can feel it.
Some days, more of the fish have that same attitude versus less. So that's the way I see it. And if that's
Almost
true,
on the money.
for the most part,
Beautiful.
if you run a crankbait or a moving bait over the top of these fish, then that one fish is going to come up and smash it, maybe regardless. So it just makes sense that moving baits are the way to go for the most part. Now, some of you guys either know about community spots or have found spots over
Hi,
time
big girl.
and are able to know that they're on fish and pick it apart. Now, in that situation, picking it apart using slower moving baits makes a lot more sense. So you have to think about what kind of water you're on and if you're confident you are on the fish or not.
Not tricking me.
I would
this
say
time.
the less confidence you have, the more moving baits you should throw. The more confidence you have, pick it apart a little more, work it a little slower. And so you can't just take a blanket approach
almost
to this just based on someone's, you know,
That would make me a little
November
sad.
top 5 baits. You know, you have to apply what bait to what scenario. Maybe you know some areas that are holding fish, and some areas you just don't
There
know.
we go.
You gotta switch it up. Pick apart the area you have confidence on. The rest of the areas that you're not so sure about, moving baits. And you have to judge a spot based on how many bites you get. And that's just the way it's got to be. It's the way it was for me before I got my unit.
That's 4 pounds.
So that was key.
Sweet.
So think about that when you're watching these videos, trying to accumulate knowledge and information. It's just not. It's not like a one-size-fits-all situation. Another important thing, speaking of
Yeah, that's true.
different scenarios, more than ever, I'm understanding that all lakes are different. How different is the question. But I have a couple lakes I've been fishing all fall.
Oh my God.
They couldn't be more different. The way the fish are set up and what they're biting. And that just is a rude awakening for me. Because some of these guys out here say a bass is a bass is a bass. You know, what works here works there. And they're even talking about across the country stuff. Like what works down there has to work up here. Well, I mean, come on.
He doesn't want to get in the net.
That couldn't be further from the truth. I'm sorry. It varies from lake to lake, let alone state to state. I had a tournament that I won this fall, for example. I tried to apply the exact same strategy to another tournament I had a week or two later, which is on another lake, which was approximately I don't know, 15 miles away. Very similar water, similar setup, same type of fish. That same strategy I used to win that first tournament was not working for the next. And that's just an example of how these lakes can differ. And that's not even mentioning some other situations I ran into. How the fish are set up are completely different on some lakes. Some lakes have largemouth that slide out to 25 foot of water. Some lakes, they don't even go any deeper than 15. It's
It's a beauty.
It's fascinating, and that's what's fun about this. I get to learn so much about this as I watch these fish migrate and where they set up. So absolutely keep that in mind. If you see a guy smashing it on one lake using something,
And it came back.
don't go too far on the idea that whatever that is working there will work on your lake. Now you can apply certain things across the board, but a lot of things not so much. And I know I'm just complicating this for some of you guys, but it's the truth. And a big part of my success is figuring out what works any given day on any given lake. And that's the number one thing I think I'm good at, and that's why I can visit a new lake for the first time, like last year, and go ahead and win the dang tournament. So it's just an interesting thing. I could go into more examples, but you get what I'm saying.
Oh, hell yeah. Little pounder, baby.
So that leads me to, let's do a little forecasting how this year is going to go. I'm not going to be able to do as many tournaments, but I certainly will get out on the water. And one of my problems, like I said, is getting enough time to put together videos during the best time of the year for you guys is spring and pre-spawn. That is the worst time of the year for me. So I get, there's lots of sources for information out there, especially on spring fishing. But I do want to do better on sharing some of the tricks I've learned over the years during these times. So what I'm going to do is, I just was reviewing some of my footage from this year.
Back to back.
I have a lot of fun footage that I never even got to post. So to expedite the process, I'm going to use some of my clips, some of my footage from this year, to compile videos for next year. Just so you can see the technique and baits in action, but without me actually having to rake through footage from
young and strong.
For example, the weekend before. It just takes too much time and it's a little tricky. So at least during my busy time, I'm going to use footage from last spring. And I essentially do the same thing every year, and it's just applying it and explaining it. So I'm going to do that, save on some time, and with the new baby,
Deceiving.
I certainly think that's the way to go. So that way I can keep putting out videos. There's so much I have not shared about spring fishing and, frankly, summer fishing. I know I touched on some things, but there's so much. So this is going to be a multi-year campaign here, but I'm going to drop as much knowledge as I can and see if I can't get you guys on some bigger fish. Lastly,
Lastly,
I'm going to try something. I've dabbled with the idea of doing some guiding or some instructional on the water stuff. And, with my schedule and everything, I think that might be a little tricky. And there's a lot more to it. You got to get a license, insurance, all that fun stuff to even bring someone out on the water. Some of you guys just don't have the time, but you have the boat and you have the baits and you just need a little help. Those guys, I'd like to help. I can break down a lake so damn fast and figure out where the fish are set up and what baits they're chomping on. That specific water. I want to start doing personalized lake breakdowns. So for those guys that get out once a week, if that, and they just don't have the time to break it down, figure it out. Once they start getting the hang of it, the season's changing, the fish are gone, and it's a tough thing. It's a tough deal, and I get it. That was me before I figured out how to break down a lake so quickly. I'm thinking I can do personalized videos with waypoints, location, bait choices, examples, everything. It's literally
Not giant.
a cheat code
4.5.
for your lake. I know some guys aren't going to like that.
Good fight, though.
They've been working years to get that knowledge. And I'm going to go out and acquire it and share it for someone, you know, with a week or two turnaround. I mean, it's seemingly not fair. I get it. And I would feel the same way if someone was doing that on my lake, and I've been working at it for years. But it is what it is. You know, the guys that don't get enough time on the water deserve a shot at these fish as well. And to be honest, money motivates. If I can generate some additional income doing what I love to help pay for my expensive habit, I will explore the idea for sure. So if anyone's interested in that, I might leave my contact info in the description. And I get it, I'm gonna get some hate,
This one's big.
but I thought about it for a couple days now. I think it's something I want to do.
I hope I'm
You know,
right.
it's something I love to do, and if I have an excuse to go break down new lakes, I'm gonna pursue it. And I'm probably gonna make a separate video breaking down how that would work, and I might even do an example video so y'all get to see what you'd get for your money. I think the value is there, and if I'm getting guys on big fish that otherwise they wouldn't be able to get on for quite some time, you know, might as well get a little cheat code and expedite the process. And you can use those spots and that breakdown for years to come.
yeah.
The value will be there.
Nice and fat
So
for the winter.
let's talk more about that in another video.
Beat it.
For now, I'm going to wrap this one up, and I'll check with you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
Trying to get off at the boat. Not today.
Looks like another 4-pounder to me.
Feels like it. Long fish, longer, not quite as fat.
Beautiful. Isn't that beautiful in the sun? Absolutely gorgeous.